Welcome to the Josh Hall Web Design Show. Helping you build better websites and create a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hey friends, welcome into episode 84. This is the first episode of 2021, and we're going to kick off the year with a really great episode and an awesome interview with an even more awesome guest. This is Avani Mariala, and she is the founder and CEO of a product UX designer agency with a growing team. She's also the host of the Six Figure Freelancer podcast, which I highly recommend you check out. I was actually a guest recently on her podcast, and we podcast swapped. I was a guest on her show, and I wanted to have her on my show to talk about, in this case, we're going to talk about hiring and what she's learned in hiring a remote team. It's funny, we were actually going to talk about systems for scaling, and hiring was a part of that, but we ended up basically doing a full episode on just hiring. So I do plan on having her back very soon to do kind of a 2.0 on this, with hearing about how she's scaled her business. And in fact, she's thinking about starting the Seven Figure Freelancer podcast because her goal for 2021 is to scale her business to 7 figures, which you'll hear about. But in this one, we talk all about hiring, which is super timely for those of you who are wanting to grow your agency this year in particular, and you want to figure out what's the best way to hire, what's the best way to attract the right talent for you and your team, what's the best way to actually manage and run your team. There's so many gold nuggets in this conversation that Avani talked about in a lot of detail. So she was very real, very transparent. I had a blast talking with her, and I'm excited to have her back pretty soon. So really excited. For those of you who are interested in scaling, even if you just want to scale on a very small level, maybe it's just you, but you're feeling overwhelmed and you want to just scale a little bit. Maybe you just want to have one designer to turn to, or just have a small team of subcontractors. They don't have to be full-time employees. It could be a mix. That's the beauty about web design. You can keep it small, you can keep it yourself, or you could build a small team to a really large team. It's totally up to you, and you're going to hear how to do that in this interview. So I'm super pumped for you. This one, now here's the thing. If you are growing a team, one thing I've realized with my courses is that I have more and more agencies coming to me sending their team through my courses. It's not something I really thought about, but recently I realized, wow, there's actually a lot of potential to kind of market my courses for agencies who have a team, but they don't know how to train them, or they don't want to have to train them themselves, and they want to borrow the principles and practices that I've used in my career and that we use for my agency. So that is a very confusing and long-winded way of saying, if you are growing a team and you would like to send them through my courses, you can do that. And the best way to do that is through my web design course bundle. I have all of my courses wrapped up and discounted in a bundle, and you can have them go through my Divi Beginners course, my process course, my design course, my SEO course, my CSS course, and even in the business side of things if you'd like. And it's going to save you so much time. It's going to save you so much cost in the long run with training them one-on-one, and you can just have them go through all my courses. So check out the bundle. I'll have it linked below in the show notes. And if you have any questions, just let me know. And without further ado, enjoy my first interview of the new year, which was a blast. I also encourage you to check out Avani's proposal builder, which I will link to in the show notes. She has a proposal builder that's super cool and can help you out with doing kick-ass proposals. So, all right, without further ado, let's dive into it. Avani, welcome to the show. So great to have you on.
Thank you, Josh. So great to have you here. So great to be here. I'm too used to having my own podcast, apparently.
Well, I was going to say, you're interviewing me in a couple days, so I totally understand. No, I'm excited.
So great to be here.
There it is. We got it. So yeah, I'm really stoked to talk with you. A mutual friend of ours introduced us, Chris Mistrick, who I had on the podcast recently. And I really liked your episode with him. I like your style. And what's been interesting, just getting to know you just a little bit, I figured I'd kind of save most of it to be able to talk with you, to really get to know what you've done. But you're big on systems, big on scaling, big on productivity, but it looks like staying balanced is huge too, which I think when it comes to scaling a business, the biggest fear for myself and a lot of freelancers is, am I going to grow a Frankenstein or something that's going to get out of control? So I'm really excited to talk systems and talk like some practical ways we can scale effectively and still maintain a good balance in life. So really excited about that. Before we dive into it though, would you like to let my audience know where you're based out of and what you do exactly?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm in Austin, Texas. Been here for some time now. I actually started my career here and we just love it so much. So running my business here is a great place to run a business. I started in the tech industry as a UX designer and I loved my job. Honestly, I worked at some amazing startups here in Austin, learned from really talented individuals, but then there was a point in time where I was just feeling stuck. I got a job, worked there for a couple of years, got another job, worked there for a couple of years, and I was like, well, now what do I do? The same thing again? Maybe, yes. And at that time, I was like, well, I could try something different. I've always wanted to feel like my days were my own. I've always wanted to be creative in the ways I want to feel creative. Sometimes even though you might be a designer, you are working in an industry and you're doing it as a job, the spark could leave. And that was what was something I was experiencing is I didn't feel creative anymore because of maybe constraints from the company or just things of that reality. I was missing that feeling. So I was like, well, what if I get a couple of freelance gigs, work with some really cool companies and have the rest of my day to make whatever I want. So that was the initial idea of me leaving my job. I left in 2017, started freelancing, and then it kind of just took a life of its own. I started getting really great clients. I maxed my own hours out and I was like, okay, do I just keep doing this or do I grow a team? Decided to start adding team members, and so it was so cool to unlock the ability to have a team and get help, which is something we can talk about later. And then from there, it just grew into an agency. I'm just really grateful. I realized I found the creativity I was looking for in being able to build a business and have resources for other designers like you do as well, and helping people do what I've done in the past.
That's awesome. Now, I want to get right into talking about scaling, but before that, I would love to know, when you went freelance, what services were you providing exactly? Because when it comes to digital strategy, that can be a very broad term. Were you building websites? Were you doing digital marketing? What type of work were you actually doing for your clients when you went freelance?
At that time, I had a much wider offering set. And at that time, I was doing website design, graphic design. I was doing branding. I was doing user experience design and product design. The last one, UX design, product design, is what I had done in-house as a designer. And over time, we've just kind of started to niche down in that area because that's what we're really, really great at. So
Gotcha.
To start off, I did a lot of things in design in those areas that I just described and started to narrow down over time.
Gotcha. And that's very common. I did the same thing. I basically did the whole gamut of print design, graphic design. The big joke with me is that I knew so little about business that I had drum lessons on my business card at first. I had no good idea about how to really package my services. So I was literally all over the place until I finally solidified website design, maintenance, and SEO. But that's all right. It's good to kind of test the waters with a lot of different services, and then you can nail down from there. So my first question for you is, did you know right from the get-go when you went freelance that you wanted to scale and you wanted to build something bigger than just you? Or did you come to like a breaking point where you realized, I've got to get help? What did that look like?
It was me just going with the flow at that time. So I actually didn't want to have an agency. For me, the word agency had a lot of preconceived ideas that came with it. Because in my experience as an in-house designer, all the agencies I had worked with felt really big and slow and didn't really understand the company. They didn't understand me, the in-house designer, or what like subject matter expert that I had become. And it felt like they were just glancing, like coming in, swooping in, doing something and swooping out. And they didn't really get our customer or our product or what we did on a day-to-day. So for me, that's what agency meant. And so initially I didn't want an agency. I wanted to be a freelancer. I hit my limit and I was like, I need to get help. And over time, we figured out a way to be an agency that feels like an in-house design team. And that's actually one of the special things that we're able to give to our clients that not a lot of other agencies that operate at the level we do offer. And yeah, it's been great because it kind of just happened. I knew I couldn't do it by myself after a certain point, and I didn't want to have a ceiling to my income either.
Well, and pretty soon it seems like, I mean, we're recording this at the end of 2020, but you had just went freelance 3 years ago. I was a solopreneur for almost 7 years before I started scaling. I had got some subcontract help, but it wasn't until that point where I really took it to like a small team level. So yeah, it sounds like it expedited pretty quickly for you. But I was going to say, one thing I love about what you just said is the front page on your website. Your tagline really kind of articulates what you just said, because your website, amsd.co, it says, get the feel of an in-house product UX designer with the firepower of an agency team. And I love that, because that is the problem. And I know when I started scaling, one big thing that I wanted to avoid was the term agency, because that was a scary term for a lot of clients. And a lot of clients tend to feel like a number on a spreadsheet while working with an agency, like you probably saw because you were on the inside of that. I never worked for an agency myself, so I couldn't really say what that looked like, but judging by what you just said, it sounds like it's exactly how it goes. You're worried about team members and profits and all that can be involved with an agency, whereas when you're a freelancer or a solopreneur with a small team, you can really focus on your clients. So I love that you guys have that approach. And I imagine from the start you wanted to avoid the term agency, right? Is that do you say like small team? Do you say me and some team members? How do you tell your clients that, or do you say agency? But how do you tell your clients that you're a small team?
Well, I use the word agency now. It took me a long time a couple of years to get to the point where I was comfortable with saying that. Once I was able to say what you see on the front page of our website, that we are different from other agencies, we operate very differently, and we do operate. If you look under the hood at our team, who we are, how we go about on day to day, how we collaborate, we are very different from a traditional design agency. And as soon as I was able to realize that we were like a new kind of agency, I was okay with using that word.
I like that though. New kind of agency. That's a good little tagline in itself there. So
yeah,
you heard it here first, folks. So how big is your team right now?
So we are. Oh, that's a good question, because I think we're about 7 or 8 people.
Okay. I was just curious.
It just varies sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, I mean, again, you started as a freelancer just a few years ago, so it looks like it's grown pretty quickly. How far were you as a freelancer before you started scaling? Did you scale like about a year in, or was it, just a couple years in, or how long did you go just by yourself before you realized, okay, I've got to get some help?
Yeah. Well, in the first year, I had to get help on development because I have no idea on how to develop things.
Okay.
Well, I have put together a WordPress website before, and one of my websites is a WordPress website, but I struggled significantly. So very quickly, I was like, I cannot do this by myself. I'm going to hire a developer. So that was the first person I started working with, and he actually still works with me. We give him a lot more work these days than I did back then. So we've just scaled up the time he works with us based on our needs. And then I hired my first designer the second year in business, like probably about one whole year, like 12 months after I started my business. So The next summer I hired a designer, my first designer, or I was experimenting with hiring a designer. It didn't go well the first time. It went really poorly, which I think everyone's scared about is what if they just fall off the face of the earth? What if they mess it up? And they might. It probably will happen to you at some point, but your skills, like you are good at what you do. There's a reason you had enough confidence. You've had some success. You're here. People think you're good at what you do. You're going to be able to pick up the pieces and make it work. Like I remember one time I played around with hiring a designer, and she literally went dark right before I had a meeting with a client.
Oh no.
So I had to, within 2 hours before the meeting, I had to do the entire thing that she said she would do.
Wow.
So it happens,
Yeah.
but you keep trying and you get better and better and recognizing who the right people are.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about hiring here because underneath the term scaling, it's kind of an umbrella term, and there's hiring, project management, personality types. There's all these little things that are under the word scaling that I'd love to unpack here. But I think you hit on something really important, which was you seem to have a very business centric mind. And I found that in the web design world, a lot of web designers are really good at WordPress and web design and design and graphics. And we tend to just do it ourselves. We try to do everything ourselves because we can figure out the tech. I think it's a lot easier, and people who are more entrepreneurial and more business minded from the outset tend to scale faster or delegate better because they realize, I don't want to figure out WordPress. I can't code for the life of me. I'm going to hire this out. Whereas those of us who figured out code and WordPress, we're like, well, we could do the sales and I can sell this because I'm doing the work. So I think that's an interesting difference between web designers and a lot of different industries because we tend to scale slower, which I'm a big proponent of. If you want to stay small and stay a solopreneur for as long as you want, awesome. I did it and was very content. But you do get to a point where you're going to have to, you don't have to scale a big agency, but you're going to have to surround yourself with people who can offload some of the work. So yeah, when you got to that point, how did you start finding your first few hires? Was it people you knew in the agency world? Did you put out an offer on Indeed? What did that look like for you? Because hiring is fascinating to me.
So it was a bunch of different ways that I found my first few designers to work with. I started just putting out the word to my friends in the design industry in Austin. I think for a few months, I worked with someone that I had worked with at a previous job, which was really fun. And then he eventually ended up getting another really good job, and he ended up working there. But then I just started posting places. I think somehow my post ended up in some kind of job board somewhere, and my designer that I ended up working with, she saw that post and then she started working with me. I worked with her for probably a year, but through her, I met someone else, and her name is Allison. She's on my team now, and she's absolutely amazing. She knows our business like the back of her hand. And I found her in this like roundabout way through someone else, So what I've noticed is that good people know other good people. So always asking for referrals and recommendations is my number one goal to finding designers to work with. But I also realize that there are lots and lots of great designers out there. I might not be connected to all of them, probably not. And so I will always put feelers out. Like I use AngelList, and there's a lot of great Slack groups for designers. I'm sure a lot of people listening in are part of those Slack groups. It's worth putting out notes on there, messages on there. But my recommendation is write a job description first, so you're clear on who you want to work with.
That's great.
How many hours per week do you want to work with them? So you know your investment, and be just really upfront and transparent about what it is you are looking for yourself. And then I like to create a little form that they have to submit. It's almost like a filter, because I can't even talk to 10 people to do interviews. Like I need to only talk to 3 people and then make my decision. So I make a form as a filter for things like rate, hours, ask them about themselves, their website, how did they hear about me? And website is for designers, in my opinion, and web designers, the most important thing. If you don't have a website, I'm unfortunately not going to look at your portfolio.
Yes. Do you care about a degree?
I don't care about a degree. I care about your website.
Yes, I love it. That's the right answer. I love that because I feel like so many designers or at least maybe it's different now, but so many designers, particularly graphic designers, were always worried about a degree. I'm like, listen, your website is the most important thing. Even if you don't have a bunch of clients, I want to see what you can do. And I want to see if you can solve problems and if you're a good person to work with. And you can show up on time and not ghost on a meeting that you should be doing with a client call like you talked about.
Yeah. The degree doesn't matter. I mean, I have a degree in industrial design, nothing to do with what I do today. It was a great background and got me to where I am, and I'm so grateful for it. But and it is a design degree technically, so it was really helpful. But I could have not had that because everything I learned was on the job too.
Well, and you said something interesting there. So you said good people know good people. That is what a great line. And it's so true. Like even if you know somebody who you're not going to hire, chances are they might know somebody who's
Hmm.
similar or up and coming. That is such a great mindset to have. So you're in Austin. So I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I've never been to Austin, but I hear Columbus is very similar. I think we're just a little bit smaller because we're a very tech centric town.
Hmm.
We've got Ohio State University. It's very college type of town, but we also have a lot of startups and a lot of tech companies here now as well. Did you intentionally want to find people in Austin, or were you open to remote workers? And I guess a follow up to that is, do you guys have people overseas in different time zones, or have you tried to keep it stateside?
Actually, the location doesn't matter to me too much. We have four people, four people in the US, one person in Canada, one person in Serbia, and one person in the Ukraine. So we are all over the place. And I don't know if that adds up, but we're all over the place, which is really
Yeah.
cool. And I love not having the constraint of you have to be in Austin, because I would love to work with the best people. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to be in my city, because there's good people all over the world. And we have the ability to do that today. Why not take advantage of it?
Yeah, and there's no better time to do that, particularly with COVID. We've seen that
Yeah.
you can pretty much do anything working from home. And web design this year was not different for us. Like, it was funny. I've been talking on the podcast a lot about how different industries and businesses were rocked and they were getting so used to doing things online. And for most of us, it wasn't any different at all. Like, well, welcome to our world,
Hmm.
working, in sweatpants and jumping on Zoom meetings all the time. Like, it really wasn't that different. And I definitely think there's no better time than now to be able to work remotely, which is really cool. It's super empowering. It should be empowering for folks who are in different countries who want to work with US based agencies and stuff, which is really cool as well. So you said something a little bit ago that I want to hit on, which was the amount of time it would take to weed out people and hire, because that's the
Hmm.
catch 22 here is you want to get help when you're overloaded with work, but anyone who's going to scale, you have to realize there's going to be a process in order to get
Hmm.
somebody to help you out. Like, it's not going to save time immediately. It will save time eventually, but it's like creating any sort of system or process or anything. The initial time to do that is pretty time consuming. So,
Yeah.
how did you balance that? Did you like set a certain, like practically, did you set a certain amount of hours per day to do that? Did you have like a standard operating procedure in place with your processes? What did that look like when you just started hiring?
So I am always hiring. I always have people that I have in a place in a folder. It's actually on my project management system,
Mm.
but I always have a list of people who I can reach out to at any point in time, because I tomorrow I might have five big projects that we say yes to, because we are scaling right now. So I need to be ready to reach out to someone. I always see our team is hiring all the time. And that means that I'm constantly on the lookout for good people. I'm constantly looking for recommendations, introductions, people that I know that I respect. And always, if they say like, "Hey, do you know, are you guys looking for anyone?" I was like, "Let me talk to them. I would love to talk to them." Because what I've noticed, and this is, I'm here to scale. So that's what I'm doing. And that's why I think this way. So especially like we have a goal. You probably heard this when in the podcast that you listened to that I was on, where I'm growing our team to be $1 million business in 2021. So in order to do that, I need to have people that I'm ready to hire, and we are going to be hiring in 2021, which is exciting. So I'm have a form that I have set up, and I use ClickUp as my project management system.
Mm.
It's a form that is in ClickUp. So right now we have an angel list posting that has a form at the bottom of that job description. If you are able to click on it and read through the job description and get to the bottom, you will see that form. So that's my first
Okay.
filter. If you don't read through it, you don't get to the bottom, and you just like apply through angel list, well, I'm not going to look at your application. So that's the first filter. And when you click on that link, it takes you to a ClickUp form. The ClickUp form is like 6 or 7 questions, email address. I ask them a question about themselves, about what makes them different, which I often read if I have a question between 2 people and I look at their portfolio and they're very similar. And then in addition to that, I will ask them about their rate of range without a contract. I don't want to talk to a $200 designer if my budget is something else.
Gotcha.
So it's not saying that I want to not pay them that, or it's not about that. It's about like, what are their expectations? Because I don't want to talk to someone and give them a misleading idea that I'm going to pay them $200 if I don't have that budget. So
gotcha.
That's the second piece. So I have all these questions. I ask them to put their resume in there because I like to see where they worked in the past. And then, or I just look them up on LinkedIn. It's not that hard to find out these days.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ask them to put a link to their portfolio. It's very, very important. This is like the number one thing for me, because if you don't have a website, if you send me, and I'm a stickler about this. If you send me a link to a Dropbox, if you send me a link to a PDF, if you send me a link even to a Behance or a Dribbble account, you're automatically removed from the running for this position, for any designer position at AMSD, because I believe that if you're a designer in technology, you must have figured out how to make your own website. That's really important to me. I need you to be scrappy, because we're a scrappy team. We wear a lot of hats sometimes, and you figure things out. I don't want you to ask me questions when you could have Googled it. So to me, that's really, really, really important. So I want them to have that link in there. As soon as they get, I see that, I'll click on it, and then I'll review their portfolio. But I'll pause there. I can go on, but I'll pause there first to see.
Well, I like
hear your thoughts.
I like the term scrappy, because that is so important. The next question I was going to ask you is, what are the most important traits that you look for? Because you can look at work and everything, but I've found the team members I've worked with, I've never had anyone full time, but I've worked with subcontractors who have been basically full-time designers for me. The most important thing that I've found is problem solving and a willingness to learn stuff. And in web design, you have to have that, because stuff is changing constantly. And like you said, it is, no matter what setup you have in any sort of digital business or marketing, you have to be scrappy, because tools are changing, upgrading. You can't get locked into one way of doing things all the time. So I've found that being able to be really, adverse, or just open to change and open to different things. And honestly, just being a master Googler, that's free university right there. Just know how to Google stuff and find stuff quickly. That's it. Are those some of the things that you look for that maybe trump other years of experience? I guess that's a question. Yeah. What do you look for that's outside of a typical thing you would see on a resume?
Yeah, I think you and I probably look for similar things, Josh. I care a lot about these characteristics, some of them that you've outlined, being able to go look for a solution before you ask me. That matters to me a lot, because first of all, I probably don't know the answer. I don't know how Envision updated their thing and now they have prototypes this way. I have no idea. I don't make Envision prototypes these days because I have an amazing person on my team who does that. So I don't know the answer. So if you're asking me, I'm going to Google it and send you a link, and you're going to have to research it anyway. So couldn't you have just Googled it? And so that whole process I would like to avoid. I want to work with the team member that first takes time to figure it out on their own. If they hit roadblocks and aren't able to figure it out, if they can ask me, they can ask Allison, our team member, they can ask other people on our team, and we would love to help them. But taking that first step and that initiative, being a self-starter, I think that's what it is you take initiative to figure it out first. And being scrappy, that means if there isn't, a wireframe that you can find that works for the thing that you're working on, you figure out how to make one on your own, or you go on to Figma communities and put it together. There's so many resources out there. in 2020, you have no excuse. Like, I don't know how to do this. Go find a YouTube video. You can figure it out. That's what I do. I just Google things every day.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never knew how to make a GIF before, and then I Googled it one day and I figured it out.
Yeah.
So things like that. So scrappiness matters, being a self-starter. Communication is super important because we are a team on different time zones. We're in different places of the world. Being able to communicate is top priority. And I tell them in the initial interview right away that communication matters a lot to us. If something happens in your world and you're not able to finish or work on the things that you were going to work on, let us know. We are a team. We're here to help each other out. You're not going to be in trouble if like life happens, because life happens to all of us, and we want to help you because you're going to help us one day. Like it's a team here. So those are, I would say, the top things that I am looking for. Integrity, yes, like all of those things, integrity and just being able to be an honest person, that matters. But to me, that's just a baseline. You must come with that if I'm going to work with you. So
Yeah.
I guess that's on the list.
So when you interview, you said like up to 3 people for something on average. Do you feel like you can tell pretty quickly like how a person is? Because I feel like I've always followed my gut, and I'm a pretty quick and good judge of character. Anybody that I've worked with or brought in, I've always been right about. Even if I gave somebody a chance and I was thinking maybe they'll do good, but I kind of have a couple red flags. Anytime I've done that, it's always shown it to be true that, the red flags I thought definitely came up right away. So I've always followed my gut. I did the same thing. I sold my web design agency earlier this year, and I did the same thing with my CEO who took over the business. I trusted my gut with him. I just felt like he was a good fit, and it turned out to be amazing. So do you follow the same idea, like just trusting your gut and getting a good feel for a personality type? Or, I mean, I imagine you can work through and see any bullshit, right? If you feel like they're saying something that maybe they're just saying that to try to land this job, you feel like you have to have a good sense of just trusting your gut with hiring people.
Yeah, I think trusting your gut is a huge part of it, because for me, a culture fit matters as well, because we are a certain type of team. We work with each other a lot. We're talking to each other a lot. So I often my interviews are sometimes really short. They're like 15 minutes long, because I can quickly tell like, hey, I like you. You seem to be able to figure things out. And I think you're going to work well with the other people on our team. And I do a test set of either like 2 to 4 weeks of a test collaboration. I've always test out the designers that I work with. It's just what's worked for me. Where we do a test engagement before I'm bringing them on to maybe a 3-month or a 6-month contract. And for me, that makes the whole process a low barrier. I'm not making this like one decision that's going to be locking me in for a year. After that 15-minute conversation, I just want to move fast. Like, I want to start getting them in on a project. Let them see, do they like our process? Do they like me? Do they like our team? Do we like them? So for me, that's like our interview process, is that 15-minute conversation. Are you going to work well with our team? Do you have the personality or the characteristics? Because I can train someone to design. I'm going to be training them anyway to design within our process. And I can train someone to improve as a designer. I cannot train someone on their values or like underlying values that they come in with. So that's really like the read I'm taking the first time I talk to them. Yeah, there is like a general concept of, I want a beginner, I want a mid-level person, I want a senior person. But within those bands, you can train someone really that easily.
Yeah, I've heard that over and over, where it's, you can train the technical stuff. What's either impossible or really hard to train is communication and just being a good person, like a person, like their mission and their heart. Like that's stuff that's really tough. So I feel like that's much more important than the tech stuff. And as long as you can figure stuff out, honestly, for anyone listening who wants to be a designer or in a position to get hired by an agency, just put "I figure stuff out" on your website. That will be like the best grabbing, attention kind of grabber, because that's what I look for. Like, I just want somebody who can figure stuff out. And like you said, I don't want to be the middleman to be able to have to look for answers. I want team members to kind of tell me like, hey, I figured this out, or I wanted to show you what I figured out. And I've surrounded myself with that kind of network. And honestly, that's when I don't want to skim over this, because I think it's a really important thing to do when you're coming up, is the people you meet, whether it's in person, there's less of that now through the COVID stuff. So you're going to be in Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups, all kinds of different digital spaces and meetups. Keep a spreadsheet of people you know, like, and trust that are in and around your industry. I did that since, I think, about 2015. I started I still have it. I have a spreadsheet on my browser that's just like people in my referral network. And those would be people, like you said, that I'm ready to talk to at a moment's notice. If I'm like, you know what, I don't do social media, but I have a couple people who I know, here's their info. I did that for years, and it was super beneficial. And it helped me because I wasn't like, crap, what was that guy's name? John or Jimmy or something 3 years ago? You know, like, you have it and they're like, here's John. This is what he does. This is where I met him. This is his hourly rate, last I know. So I would definitely encourage anyone listening to do that. Have like a spreadsheet of people you run across and you know, like, and trust. Or maybe even like, I have a Facebook group for web designers who use the Divi theme by Elegant Themes. That's what I use. And we have like a whole group of people in and around that, of people that I have seen being really helpful in the group. And I recently launched my web design club, which is my membership of a lot of my students. For me, that's kind of been like that. There it is. Like, there's the people I'm going to start working with more and more moving forward and refer out. But for anyone who joins that, that's also an instant network. So I say that to say, whether it's my web design club or any group you're a part of, keep an intentional eye out for members and or for colleagues and people you can network with, because that will be really empowering. Because if you can't figure something out, you can say, I am a part of a network where we could get it figured out. That was the big thing for me, is when I just started out, I may not have been able to figure out something with PHP and some really advanced code, but by golly, I could hire it out, or I found somebody who could do it. So I think that's really crucial. And I like that you kind of looked out for the same stuff I did, that and intuitiveness to just figure it out, just be a good Googler. So one of the questions, I know you only have about 20 more minutes or so. So I think we'll just keep this to more hiring. Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up episode on the systems for scaling like the clients. But this is good. I'm glad that we're focusing on people and hiring, because the next question I have for you is, so this is all great. You talked about where you find people. You talked about putting a job description in place so you know what role it is. You talked about what you're looking for, what kind of things are going to go over well when you're weeding people out. You talked about your forums and your process for that. But when you onboard somebody, are you taking them through your internal processes first while simultaneously training them? Do you just kind of give them an easy project just to get their feet wet, or do you throw them right in? What does that look like when they're actually moving forward with you?
Yeah, so we're upgrading this right now. So what we have currently is someone comes onto the team and we have a set of onboarding videos that they watch. So we use Loom, and we just have a folder right now of those videos, but we're planning on moving them into a design playbook that I'm currently building out. So the idea is that this playbook is something that can be broken out into chapters, and depending on if that new person is doing a test project, I can say, like, this is the chapter you need to read to know everything you need to know, and then you can get started on this project. So right now it's a link with a bunch of great videos, which it's just me with a screen recording talking, like, here's how we use Slack. Here is what you need to do and where you need to communicate in this channel. This is how you use ClickUp. ClickUp is our project management system. It is very, very important for the way we operate, and they need to know how that works, because I want them to get especially when this is a new person I'm testing, I want to let them have a full view into the process. So gotcha. How we use Slack, how we use ClickUp, how we use Toggl to track our time, how we use, I don't know, what else do we use? Figma to make the designs. So I want them to get a little slice of the entire cake, basically, not just tiny piece.
It's almost like an AMSD business course, right? Like, you're kind of taking them through a training on how things work, because that's a big thing too. If you just put somebody on a project, they may do really good on the design, but if they don't know how you work, they could really mess it up if they're like, they're talking to the client before they should, or if they're not following the right standard processes and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so exactly, I want them to get a little training. It's not a long time. It takes people maybe 45 minutes. It's not
Okay. Yeah.
the videos I
Not
make
like
are
a month training kind of thing.
no,
Yeah.
no, because also I don't know if I'm going to work with them for a long, long time yet. So I want them to get this snippet of this is what you need to know because I've already identified what project I might want them to work on. And usually for me, it's a subset of a larger project. It is very well defined. So then I get them onboarded in those tools that I just described, and I will actually bring them as a guest into our project management system, and I'll assign them a task. And in the task, we have this is probably more of like a systems thing, but we have a very clear way how we organize our task cards and how they're nested. We have formats, we have templates that we use. So every time they open a task that's assigned to them for a specific day, they're never wondering, wait, where do I begin? Because there's a video, there's a set of specifications, here's the link to the file and the project,
Okay.
and all of those things are associated with that. And designers are often visual learners.
Yeah.
Go figure. So I found that making video recordings is extremely effective. I don't have to rely on them having taken notes in my Zoom call. They can rewatch that video as many times as they want. They can pause it. They can look at it. They can hear it. If you find someone that reads better, you can type things out for them. But luckily for me, we have a team that is a visual learning team. So I just make videos.
That's huge. Just document your stuff. Like document. It's easier said than done for sure because it's very time
100%.
consuming. But all you have to do is record yourself doing something. I mean, you want to try to be thrift and concise with it so your videos aren't hours long, but you can absolutely do that. Like I hired a VA for this podcast, and she does the distributing and the outline and the transcription and stuff. And I just basically set up a workflow, and then I just recorded each piece of me doing it. That way she can always refer back to it. So it's the same idea. I mean, there's definitely levels of complexity with certain things, but at the core, that's what you should do. At least document. If you think you're going to scale, document your stuff for sure. I wanted to ask you real quick, because we've talked about a lot of cool things and uplifting things with hiring and growing. But let's talk about firing, because if you're hiring a lot of people, I imagine you've talked about firing, and I just saw you light it up. So that's cool. I want to hear. I don't imagine
it's like a funny thing to light up about, but I'll tell you why I lit up about it.
That's what I want to hear. Why did you light up? I can't imagine you love firing people, but it looks like you probably learned some stuff when it comes to firing. What did that look like?
Yeah. So I have if you listen to my podcast, Six Figure Freelancer, which Josh will be on very soon. If you listen to the podcast, you'll notice I talk a lot about mindset, a lot about what's in here, what's between your ears, because I think everything starts in your mind. Everything starts with the mentality that you're moving into a new business, a new venture, whatever. So I think that's very important. And for me, one of the affirmations that I have is, what isn't for me or is no longer serving me falls away quietly. And that, to me, applies for team members as well. I've seen this happen so many times. It's just amazing. And I'll explain what I mean. So,
can you say that quote again?
Yes. What isn't for me or is no longer serving me falls away quietly. This can mean anything. This can mean a job that you really, really hate. And you're like, I don't want to quit. And you get let go. And maybe that's a good thing for you. This can mean a relationship, a friendship that you have been feeling is really sticky and draining. Maybe they just stop talking to you and you just stop talking to them and you grow apart. And maybe that's a good thing. This could mean a team member on your team. This has happened to me twice for people who I've worked with for a long time. And basically, we had a really great relationship. Things started out really wonderfully. But over time, I was noticing the performance wasn't there. Like all of a sudden, in a few weeks, I realized like they weren't performing at the level that they used to. Something was wrong. And I would be checking in with them and they would just say like, I had a bad week or I'm tired. And we do have bad weeks. I'm not saying like bad weeks mean you're fired. But when you see that consistently week after week and you're realizing like and these designers, I was paying them a pretty good price. So I expect if I'm paying someone, you're not here to like, we're not doing this for fun.
Right.
Like,
It's not a charity. It's tough,
No.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I am running a business. So there's a lot of things that are in play here. If this was for fun, that would be a different story. But I'm paying you a premium price. I do expect high quality work, and I will check in. We have weekly one-on-ones with every team member. I have weekly one-on-ones with every team member because I want to know. I want to know how they're doing. I really care about them. I want AMSD to be the best place they've ever worked, ever. And I'm on a mission to make that happen in the next year. So in the case where something's not right, they're not performing, and I'm just noticing, I'm asking them what's going on, and they're like, oh, I'm having a tough time. They're saying like, I don't know, I just haven't been in it. I haven't been feeling like the ideas aren't coming to me. And so I kept an eye on it. And then at some point I was like, I don't think this is going to work. I think like we're going to have to end our engagement, end our contract. And it's hilarious because both times that I've had to do that, the next week in our one-on-one, they told me that they were resigning.
Oh,
both times.
So you followed your gut. You trusted you could tell, right? Something was off.
Yeah. And I could tell something was off. I mean, there have been times where I've had to sever the relationship. Like I've had to do that, and I've had to initiate it, and it's not easy. And it's not because they're a bad person or that I don't like them as a person. It is not personal. It just means when something is off, when you're feeling something is off and you're noticing it come up again and again, it means this isn't a right fit. For someone to continue being in a wrong fit for a long period of time is not serving them, and it's not serving you, and it's not serving my team. I cannot do that to the other people on my team.
Yeah. It's also not serving your clients. Like it all filters down to your client, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
like everything. It's like a ripple effect. Anything that happens in the team just trickles down to your clients, and then it affects their work. Like it can be a cancer if something happens like that. Have you ever had somebody that you had to let go or fire because of any sort of personality kind of thing? Even if it was maybe their work was good, but they were just kind of a tough personality. I know I talked about this in a recent podcast because I had one similar talking about a gentleman who scaled his business. And I told him I used to be in a band, and we got a new bass player one time. And our previous bass player was awesome. Nicest guy in the world, but his competence was lacking. He would just show up to practice or a show and not have his bass. We're like, where is your bass guitar? But he was a great person. He was great to be around. And when we let him go, we got this other guy in who was really professional, really technical. But a couple months in, we found out that his personality, like his negativity, was kind of hidden until he got comfortable with us. And it was like a cancer. It was like everybody was moody and angry all the time. And we realized we had to let him go. And it was really difficult. And I think that's really common in business, to where somebody might get through the filters, but then you find out, oh, this person's actually kind of a cancer to our business. Have you ever had an experience like that?
I haven't. I've been in business for 3 years, so there's a lot of chance for new experiences. However, I'm very confident in our process. That is, again, why we do a test set of weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, because I can quickly and easily identify someone that's like that, that's not going to work well with us. And I will make a point, anyone in a test set of weeks or test month, they are not client facing. Everyone on my team basically earns the ability to be client facing.
Okay.
And that happens after months and months in. So it's almost like they're in a safety net for us and for them as we're testing out the relationship. So I would be able to quickly identify if that person is like that, very quickly identify it. And I also just have an affirmation that we attract the best people. We attract really great team members that are hungry and excited to work with us and share our values. Yeah. So I'm just personally, we're not energetically available for someone that doesn't match where we are in energy levels.
Well, my one of my favorite takeaway quotes from 2020 was, "Your vibe attracts your tribe." And that seems like it's very true with you. Like you're going to attract the people who are a good fit. And I found that with my web design club, like the members in there, it's already become like the most encouraging, amazing, supportive little corner of the internet, because they're all like-minded. They may not believe the same things or be the exact same, but we all have a similar core belief in like bettering each other, building each other up, and growing our businesses and being eager to support each other. And that's huge. And I definitely see that in you with your team. Your vibe attracts your tribe. You're getting people who maybe not, they don't have to be the exact same energy, but they still, they got to fit into the mold a little bit. And I'm sure it is good to get some counterparts and some people who are a little different. I actually was going to ask you that too. Do you try to surround yourself with people who complement your strengths or who might challenge you a little bit to think differently, even just from a business perspective?
I would say that it needs to be someone who complements my strengths or who challenges me. I want to work with people who call me out when I'm wrong or I forget something, because I often do. And I'm not a detail-oriented person, so I have some team members that are detail-oriented, some team members that think a little bit differently than I do, that ask different kinds of questions that kind of fill in my weaknesses. So, and I tend to move really quickly and I ask certain kinds of questions, but I forget to ask other questions. So some of my team members are a little bit more patient and a little bit more thoughtful. And you can see that in the way they interact with our clients. And not saying that I'm impatient or not thoughtful, but you can see by my energy and the way that I talk, like I want to move fast. I want to break things. I want to do it today. So that's not always the best.
Well, and you're hitting on a big point, which is being self-aware. I think any leader has got to be self-aware. The worst leaders are the ones who are not self-aware about their faults, because we all have faults. Nobody's perfect. And I've had to realize that. I think I'm pretty similar to you in that the detailed type of stuff is not my cup of tea. I'm really good at creating processes and creating a checklist, but then I never want to follow it again. Like I want to hand it off to have somebody who likes that. But I can create it and I can inspire people. And I love, I'm kind of the same way. I like to do stuff pretty quick. And if we break it, we'll fix it. Or, I'm learning to kind of have people. It's one reason I wanted to have help with the podcast, because I want a detailed person to go through the kind of stuff that I don't want to follow the checklist every time. So I think being self-aware is super important in any sort of leadership role. And it sounds like you guys really create a pretty welcoming environment, or open environment. Would you say that, to where people can express like, I'm good at this, or because you want to get that constructive criticism? Do you do that on your one-on-ones? Do you just keep it personal and keep it open like that to make them feel comfortable with sharing how they're feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. The one-on-ones for me aren't really about the business as much as it is about how they're doing and how they're feeling. So my goal is just to check in with them. I want to know, we talk about their lives sometimes. We talk about what's happening in the background, how they were feeling last week. Are they feeling overloaded or not? Or how are they I often ask, what is the favorite project that you've been working on? What's the least favorite project you've been working on? That gives me a really good insight into what's going on in their head. So I want to be able to know that and understand. I might pick apart myself like later on and analyze why they didn't like that project or why they did like that project, because that can tell me about their strengths and where they might need to grow as well.
Gotcha.
So it's just about them. That time is important to me, and it's all about them. And I want to know how they're doing.
Well, this is awesome. I know we're getting close on time. I have one more question for you, which is, so you have big aspirations of getting to a 7-figure mark for 2021. I don't think you're going to be able to do one-on-one calls every week if your team's growing pretty exponentially. I mean, maybe you will, but what's your strategy for hiring? Like, what are you going to have to do differently on your end to be able to hire effectively to keep up with that? Are you going to do group calls? Are you going to be much more strict with your schedule? I'm just kind of curious. What's that going to look like for you, do you think? Have you planned that out?
Yeah, great question. And I know that you've been down this route on your own as well. So really good question. I am planning on actually empowering other team members to help me do those one-on-one calls. There are some people that I really trust, and I know they're really good at their job. They're better than I am in a lot of things. So, and I'm planning on empowering them to do one-on-ones with some of the other team members that I can't, especially some of the newer team members or some of the more junior team members. And I will be doing that more infrequently. So it might be a once a month or once every couple months type of thing where I check in with them. And then the conversation definitely changes, because often in our one-on-ones, they ask me questions about like what's coming up that week. And I don't need to be the person who answers those questions all the time, because other people know what's coming up that week. Right. And I can train someone on how I operate on my one-on-ones as well, because it's not just me that can care about our team members. There are other people that already care about our team members. So I'm planning on really already started trusting my team more, leaning into their skills, because it's not about me. This is a recent realization I've had. It's not about me holding all of this together anymore. It's not that anymore. It's about the team and letting them shine and letting them take the stage. And they're the ones who are the glue of AMSD. It's not me anymore.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, the idea of being a guide for your clients is really popular with StoryBrand and a lot of these other marketing ideas now, where you're the guide, your clients are the hero. And I feel like it looks like you're taking that role with your business. Like you're now the guide to your team and they are the heroes. You're kind of elevating them to really do it and get it done. It's super cool. That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you've got a really good foundation here, Avani, for doing good things in 2021. I definitely think we're going to have like a part 2 of this to talk about the systems for scaling, because we didn't even talk about. But this has been great. I've really enjoyed picking your brain with the hiring aspect. So I'll probably just title this episode a little differently. But yeah, let's maybe do a part 2 on that. Where can my audience find more about you, and where would you like them to go to check out your website?
Yeah, I will. They can check out amsd.co if they want to see our agency site, and they can also click over, I think there is a link on AMSD. I can't remember now, but avanimiriala.com, AVANIMIRIYALA.com. And I do need to send you those links, Josh. I'll do that today. That is the website where I have a lot of my content. You'll see blog posts, podcasts, and a lot of great stuff over there, as well as my proposal builders, which is a really great tool perfect. For you to use if you're a freelancer, which I think a lot of people here are. And I'm on Instagram at Avani Miriala. I'm on there every day. Catch me on my stories, DM me so we can be friends, because I love cheering people on as they grow their own freelance practices and businesses. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on and being transparent with what you've learned so far. Definitely don't think this will be the last time. I think maybe pretty soon we'll have to have a round 2. And yeah, send me those links. I'll link it all in the show notes. And until next time, thanks so much for coming on. We'll talk to you soon, Avani.
Thank you.
Hey guys and gals, just wanted to pop in with a couple things before you head out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other web designers find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to joshhall.co, click on podcasts, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.